I genuinely felt bad yesterday for an entire city and fan base and a team, really. The Detroit Lions did something you don't want to do. They blew a 17-point halftime lead, 24-7, as they went into the break. Dan Campbell decided to go up 3 scores instead of going for it at like the 3 or 4 yard line on 4th and goal. And look, I actually get it. We talked last week, late last week, about how much you really put into factors going into games, 4th down decision making, and how like it's just becoming more and more normal. 4th and 3, 4th and 2, unless you're deep in your own territory, it almost feels like a certainty that teams are going to go for it now. And we talked about that last week, and there was a real test right there. 4th and goal, you're up 21-7. You could go up 28-7 at the break. Like 28-7, even though it's only 4 points, it just has such a different vibe and feel to it. And Dan Campbell said, no, I'm not going to outthink the room here. I'm going to kick a field goal, and I'm going to go up 3 scores. In the moment, I think, okay, I get it.
Yeah. And I think the difference was San Francisco got the ball to start the second half. I think if the Lions got the ball to start the second half, he goes for it.
I agree with that as well. And so he's up 24-7. Coincidentally, I saw a tweet from Matt Mayoka, who was on our show last week, and he put out something at halftime that said, in 1957, the Niners were up 24-7 against the Lions in basically the equivalent to the NFC title game. Lions won 31-27, and so he highlights Niners down 24-7. I saw that and rolled my eyes, and in his mentions, basically people were rolling their eyes, and he hit on something and ended up being kind of right and replaying itself just in the reverse way. I'm happy my team won, certainly. I really felt for Detroit yesterday because it's one thing to lose. It's another to lose in heartbreaking fashion like that, Swigard. I mean, just devastating.
Oh, no question. I was with a couple of Niners fans in our group, and they were excited, but they knew if Detroit was going to the Super Bowl, they were rooting for Detroit.
No, I said the same thing. I was telling people.
It was such a great story. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I think the thing – I don't know. I'm curious why they quit running the ball. I mean, San Francisco made adjustments, made it more difficult to run the ball. But the Detroit deceivers, all of a sudden, Josh Reynolds got the dropsies at the wrong time. They had trouble holding on. And there were some plays they could have made to help Jared Goff out to keep drives going, and they didn't.
The fourth down decision-making in the second half. So this is where I get a little confused on Man Campbell. So you don't want to go for the touchdown at the end of the first half. Okay. Also, to what you said earlier, the Niners get the ball back. I'm fine with that.
But he went forward on some 4th downs also at other points in the first half.
The 4th and 3 in the second that Reynolds dropped, I didn't have a problem with that one.
No, that's what he does.
The second one is where I will just disagree with any analytical person or Man Campbell, who in the postgame, we'll get some audio here in a second, talked about it. There's, 5 and some change when they go for that 4th down?
Yeah.
Dude, your offense at that point had almost they were 45 yards of offense in the second half. Niners are severely outgaining you. You got to read the moment. And analytics be damned. And I believe in that point it actually was a bit of a toss-up. I'm kicking the field goal. And I also read that their kicker, who they had just signed, Badgley,
yeah.
From 40 to 49, he was basically 80%. So I'm giving you 80% of math saying he's going to make this, and you had just not converted a previous 4th down because Josh Reynolds couldn't hold on to the football. I just don't get that decision. I will never get that decision. You can tie the game. Even if you lose, at least give your team something to build off of. Like, hey, we can do this still.
Put the 49ers deep in their own territory with the kickoff try and make them go the length of the field.
Here was Dan Campbell in the postgame on those 4th down attempts.
I just felt really good about us converting and getting our momentum and not letting them play long ball. You know, they were bleeding the clock out. That's what they do. And I wanted to get the upper hand back. And it's easy hindsight, and I get it, I get that. But I don't regret those decisions. And that's hard because, we didn't come through. It wasn't able to work out. But I don't. And I understand the scrutiny I'll get. That's part of the gig, man. But it just didn't work out.
He's so right on that. Certainly going to be scrutiny. I listened to a little Detroit radio at my house this morning when I got up, just out of curiosity. The 6 callers I heard, pretty level-headed actually, like, hey, it's really heartbreaking. I still wish you would have kicked on one of those, but this is who we are. It's how we got here.
Well, I think it's all your perspective on, is this, this the next step in the progression, or it's going to be another 50 years before we ever have this opportunity again?
Well, we'll get to that later in the show. Which loser of these conference title games would you most likely bet to be right back here a year from now? And it's the NFL, so none is certainly an answer I think a lot of people will choose just out of being safe. But I think both things can be true. I saw a lot of either or, and I think both are true. Dan Campbell being aggressive helped build up their culture, helped get them to where they got, helped get them to 24/7. Also, read the moment, read the momentum. Everything was against you. You have a chance to potentially tie the game. I think those are learning moments for him. This was his first playoff go-around. And so I think any Dan Campbell he can't coach. Any opinion that exists like that
he was
needs to go away.
Yeah, he was consistent, though, with how he's been throughout his coaching career. So I don't think he was out of character. I think it's just a specific, he goes by his gut. That's how he coaches in a lot of those situations. So now I think he will remember that for the future.
Yeah, I think it's something to learn from, which I think is kind of a point.
He will.
Right.
I think he will keep that in mind next time he's in the situation of a big game, on the line, need this victory. How do we approach this situation?
I think this was he had a couple really interesting quotes in the post game. He talked about what this league is and what this league can be, and I thought this was a great answer.
I just feel like we're, a little bit like everybody else who didn't make it, and everybody else who lost. Unless you're San Francisco, and who won the other one, I don't even know. KC, then you got a pretty bad taste in your mouth. And it's what's great about this sport, what's great about the game, it's what's great about the tournament, and it's also what just crushes you.
He also talked about how, being honest in a locker room, this isn't an easy message. You famously have had coaches be in the postgame on the loss and losing end of a conference championship and be like, we're going to be right back here, man. And that's not always the case. So he was pretty honest with his guys in the locker room. This is what he told them.
Told those guys, this may have been all we shot. Do I think that? No. Do I believe that? No. However, I know how hard it is to get here. I'm well aware, and it's going to be twice as hard to get back to this point next year than it was this year. That's the reality. And if we don't have the same hunger and the same work, which is a whole nother thing, once we get the off season, then we got no shot of getting back here. I don't care how much better we get or what we add or what we drive. It's irrelevant. It's going to be tough. Everybody in our division is going to be loaded back up, and you're not hiding from anybody anymore. Everybody's going to want a piece of you, and which is fine, which is fine. But so it's hard. You want to make the most of every opportunity, and we had an opportunity, and we just couldn't close it out. It stings.
It's just heartbreak city in Detroit right now, and you can't I'm wearing a Niner hoodie right now, and I'm telling you, I legitimately felt kind of bad. I was celebrating, and then they'd show a shot of Goff walking in the tunnel or Man Campbell walking back to the locker room, and I'm like, oh, man, I like those guys.
A long walk.
It was a
long flight home.
It's got to just be that flight. I'm almost wondering if you heard anything the entire flight. That's a 4-hour flight, probably
4 to 5 hour flight. Yeah.
And I bet you it was 4 to 5 hours of sleeping and silence. And there's nothing else you can do about it. Blowing a 24/7 lead at halftime. There's nothing that you and I can say or try to pretend to feel. We'll never experience that. And it's just devastation right now, I think, in the city of Detroit.
Yep. It'll take them a while to get over it. And I don't know if they'll be able to watch the Super Bowl much. That'll be a tough watch for them.
I tell you right now, if I was like St. Brown, I wouldn't. And I also, from the Niner perspective, he disappeared. He was dominant in the first half.
Yeah, they bottled him up. Reynolds couldn't catch it.
Well, like the fourth down play that Reynolds dropped, 4th and 3. I'm sorry. St. Brown is my guy there. I'm going down with that ship. Him or Laporta. Like, no disrespect to Josh Reynolds.
Well,
but
the
Josh
49ers dialed up Goff didn't have as much time to survey in the second half.
No, certainly.
And
that
credit
defense,
to the 49ers. Their defensive adjustments really affected them.
They did. They got on Goff. Their pass rush was non-existent in the first half. It felt like every other play getting to Goff and causing that pressure. And, Goff is another one, like a great first half, a great start. I thought he was pretty awful in the second half. I mean, he had plays and passes, just overthrow, bad throw. Hell, the Reynolds one, I still think he should catch. You're a receiver in the NFL. But even that is like a little bit of an extension out. And that's what happens. Your quarterback's not perfect. Plus, you pair with momentum, bad decision making. It just becomes an avalanche at that